Hello, everyone. So glad to have you here with us today, and welcome to the first masterclass of the 2022 to 2023 series with the MET Orchestra Musicians here at Lessonface today, featuring Jeremias Sergiani Valesquez. I'm Katie Falk Flores here with Lessonface, where we connect students with great teachers for live lessons and classes. In this masterclass today, we will have 3 student performances and coaching sessions, followed by a brief Q&A at the end. So please enter questions in the chat box if you have them, and we will address them after the performances. For our first performer of the day, we have Siddharth Raghavan from Brooklyn, New York, a current student at Johns Hopkins University in Maryland, who will be playing the Chaconne in G minor by Tommaso Vitali.
Bravo! That was great. Wonderful. Well, hello everyone who is watching, and very nice to hear you. Very, very nice. Thank you so much. I've actually heard this piece many times growing up in like recordings and stuff, but I've never actually heard it live uh, or performed it. But yeah, it's weird. I'm like a little bit kind of familiarized from listening so much as a kid, but never seen it or played it. Um, but great, and it's great to hear you play it. Thank you so much. A lot of very very beautiful things. I was thinking maybe we could maybe talk about some stuff that probably will help you get it even better. The first thing I wanted to mention was I think at the very opening. I like the character that you're trying to convey. Um, I think you would be benefit by finding somehow a bit more variety on your bow usage. So in the theme, sorry, let's get him a chair. Right now, I'm going to exaggerate a little, but maybe you can do something uh, with your sound that really syncs and really connects each note to the next one. Um, Most of the recordings that I've heard, they were done very romantically, and that's how you also are playing it, which is great. I think it sounds great. Um, and so, vibrato is okay. It's allowed and all that. But I think it would be more effective if there's any way to kind of connect the notes a little more and really think of a longer line. So instead of singing out. So that's all one phrase. So I want to be able to kind of hear this very long line throughout, um, without getting too specific on what we can do with the bow. I wanted to try to play this phrase one more time. Try to just think. Let's see what you think with what happens if you think of just a longer phrase and a bit more encompassing. Great. Um, so I think a lot of the expression could be, and the phrasing, it could be achieved through thinking a little bit more about what we do with our quarter notes. So instead of kind of playing them evenly, but so if I kind of slow down slow motion, technically speaking, what I'm doing is little bow, more, kind of a crescendo basically. And if I even zoom in more into what I'm doing exactly, is increasing bow usage, increasing my arm weight a little bit, and increasing the vibrato. So if once these things become a little more second nature, then you'll be able to think, okay, I'll do a longer line, and then automatically you would kind of activate those items in our toolbox. Um, But in order to have them there available for us, and that's what we practice, we have to first think of them consciously. So that's like very kind of a mindfulness aspect to practicing. So it would help maybe thinking one thing at a time when you practice. Think of, so first of all, you have to have kind of an image how you want it to sound. And if the image is kind of a longer phrase, expression through the quarter notes, through the shorter notes, then like you think, what can I do? So maybe I can increase my bow usage. So you practice is doing that. Then you can experiment with the vibrato, experiment with bow pressure. So now try it again and think a little bit, because I know it's a lot of things to think at once. So maybe it might help for now to think a little bit of crescendo or think of direction in those, in the quarter notes. Much better. That's really good. Much better. Much better. And your even your bow changes is really good. So now that we kind of got the main impulse of direction, maybe in another aspect of phrasing that I think would be nice here, would be to also think what to do with the half notes. Because all we have is quarter notes and half notes, quarter notes and half notes, right? The quarter notes are kind of like a pickup, and then the longer notes move the phrase a little bit slower, but they should still move the phrase. So I'm exaggerating, of course, but right now it sounds a little bit. So make sure each half note has a purpose and a function. So if this, I don't have the piano part with me, but I would assume that's maybe the main part, perhaps, where the piano changes the chord. So maybe there you could think of those half notes still as having direction towards the following measure. So okay, so that's kind of dun, 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 kind of like building a little bit of tension, but kind of releasing it, but then it stays. And I know it's going to be great. Like if you just think of what you do with the phrasing or how you would sing it, even usually always helps me with phrasing. Another thing that I would like to talk about is maybe a little bit about vibrato. And there's a lot. Everybody has a very personal and different way of doing vibrato. Of course, there's no one way. What I'm missing a little bit is how the vibrato matches the character. So in this case, as we were talking about phrasing and connecting notes, I think vibrato will really help you connect each note. So instead of so maybe we can try a little more connected. but maybe sometimes where you're trying to build the tension. Something that might be helpful is when you practice scales and things like that, just maybe 2 minutes a day, just to scale and being really, really conscious of connecting vibrato from one note to the other. And with having the hand as relaxed as possible, kind of as you were holding an open tube of toothpaste. And so not this kind of vibrato, but the kind of, I'm really doing this pressure. I'm not doing this, but barely touching the string. So, and this is something that of course it takes time to internalize, but maybe you can give it a shot and think of, playing one more time, the opening phrase, and think a little bit of connecting the vibrato, but also letting go a little bit of the fingers, finger pressure. It's getting there. I think maybe something it might help you work. I know you, like I said, there's different types of vibrato. So you have a very fast wrist vibrato, which might work great for some moments. And there's no better vibrato than any other one. I always think is better is to expand our vibrato palette and to have different types of vibrato and different types that we can use, so we don't just have the one. And that's very hard, and that's something I work on it all the time. But it's very important, I think, to help with your sound and getting to different kinds of characters. I want to ask Katie, I just not sure about the timing.
We've still got about 8 minutes
okay.
for more coaching.
Yes, perfect. So do you want to play maybe the first variation now?
Yeah.
Great. Good. Thank you. Wonderful. In this, obviously it's a variation from what was happening before, but I think the little notes stuff, I think you can still sing them more. I don't see them as a kind of a virtuosic thing, that it should be played like fast and flashy, but I think it's a very kind of I don't want to say intimate, but it's definitely a very singing quality. And I know there's a dot there, but arrangement by Leopold Charlier. Maybe, I don't know if he put all these articulations, but I don't know. I think all of this should be more sung. It has a dot, which just means separated from the next note. It's just kind of up to interpretation and depending on the context. Because sometimes a dot means, but I don't think it means here. And also you have a crescendo. as opposed to, I think it's a very, very sung. So that's really what you're playing. But he adds some embellishment. Okay, so everything very sung and connected. I would like to hear a little more of that. And you do that by just kind of slowing down the mind a little bit and just thinking of singing. Don't worry about the notes or anything. Why don't we play again from rehearsal number 1? Do you have that? And the number 1?
I don't have that. Oh,
Actually, no. Let's play from where you played before. Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah,
it's
take your
more
time with the harmonic.
singing
And this is just a
there.
little fingering suggestion, whatever works for you. But I was just now was doing third position. And then just take your time with the harmonic. It's like a little, it's not a, so with 2 or with 3. Oh. Okay. Even take your time a little more, even. Great. Even take your time a little
okay.
more. So if you're doing first position, so what I do to not sound too like that doesn't sound very nice. So I just lighten my bow. So just lighten your bow and take your time. One time do it a little bit too slow.
Okay.
Great. Yes. Good, good. Good. I meant slow the shift up to the harmonic. Okay. Even so, sometimes when we shift, it's always obviously it's one of our greatest challenges to know exactly where the note is. That's something we deal with every day. But something that as violinists, I myself included, always we end up doing stuff that doesn't help us when we shift. Like sometimes if there's something hard, I sometimes move and then I mess up like where the note is. And I don't know why. Maybe it's like a defense mechanism or something. But really what helps us is to feel a little more stable. So if I do something like that, I might miss it, and I just want to make the job easier for my hands. So I try to just feel grounded. Okay. Why don't you play? Oh, maybe why don't you play one more time from the first variation and think of really singing through the shorter notes, through the 8 note. Ba-da-da-da. Really take your time, and there's no one is in a rush. One more time. that's much better, and I think I like that you're kind of not in a rush. And once you try to also implement what we talk about in the first part, vibrato and bow usage in order to convey a phrase and a certain character, and it's something that you can do away from the instrument first and just thinking and and singing, and then try to find ways how I can make that image, a mental image, happen. But beautiful job, wonderful, great to hear you. Thank you for playing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was
Thank you so much.
lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, let me get everything in order. Up next. And now we have Jorge Veraquino from Paraguay and a current student at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who will be playing the Alemanda, Corrente, Sarabanda, and Giga from Partita number 2 by J.S. Bach.
Hello, Maestro. Thank you very much for your knowledge.
Great, thank you. Let's see if I can turn on. Since I'm unable to start my video. Let's see.
Sorry, that was my fault. A little slow left-handed here. Try again.
Let me press start video. It says unable to start. Oh, there you go. Start my video. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Sounds great. Wonderful. Jorge, great. So you've obviously played this piece before, I guess, or it sounds great. Sounds like you really know it. When many times I think when we play Bach that has seemingly kind of just one line, sometimes we can kind of fall in the trap of kind of doing just that, and I think you did pretty well at and still kind of making it polyphonic, but I think I could hear a little bit more of that Bach obviously is his middle name is polyphony pretty much, and even in Alemanda still I think that very very much applies. So all those notes or whatever the notes are, so I think I wish I could maybe hear those a little bit more or do something with your sound. That's number one. And then number two, it felt still quite very effective, your bow usage, and there's thousands and thousands of ways of playing Bach. I think maybe there is a way perhaps to vary a little bit the sound, and technically speaking, I would say a little bit with some bow usage, varying your bow usage a little bit, or using a little bit more. Again, I don't mean to change your interpretation. Everybody plays it very differently, and there's no right way, and I really like what you're doing with it. I just wonder if you could maybe implement a little bit of even more different colors or different ways to use your bow. In my sense, in my view, perhaps I'm thinking of just using a little bit more bow, basically. Sometimes, not all the time, but so you can achieve a different kind of sound. Want to start it again and think a little bit more of the polyphony, and maybe just try using a little bit more bow, basically. Great, much better. I realize you're using a little bit more bow, but maybe I think, for example, in you're doing it with your sense of timing, which is great, and I think you could do it maybe a little bit more with your sound. I don't know if that translates into maybe lightening the bow or something, so it's not too militaristic. And sometimes I like that you are then delineating the phrases very well. Sometimes it can be a little bit abrupt. For example, right there. So instead of that, so what I mean by showing the phrases and the voices is not like a clear cut, but maybe more kind of handing over something to something else, because everything keeps flowing. Anyway, why don't we actually move on to the next movement?
Okay.
Because a lot of it I think applies to the rest, but correct. Awesome. Great, great, great. Maybe this could be a little, a lot of great things about it, and I like your sense of showing polyphony and stuff. I think it could be a little bit more dance-like, in my opinion. I think this could be achieved with a little bit more variations in bow usage. I'm very hesitant of saying lighter because I don't want you to play lighter. But at times, perhaps ends of notes or like little corners to a new phrase or something, I think you could kind of lighten up the bow as opposed to
Okay.
like a little more dance-like. I want to try one time. Make sure I like that your ornaments are great. Make sure sometimes they don't get too stuck in them, and that they uh, I would like them to be an ornament and not too much of a main event. As opposed to you know, so they don't get in the larger pulse of the phrase. I think when you have the so that kind of thing, or maybe sometimes might be because of the string crossings and stuff. Sometimes some of them are accented in the second beat or something, but if you can just think of them as one, as opposed to just try one more time. Great. That sounds awesome. Great, great, great. I really like it. Really like your ornaments too. Let's move on to the sarabanda. great. Sounds wonderful. Actually, although of course it's a very different character from what you were playing before, I have some of the same comments regarding sometimes when you end the phrase or when some voice switches, it sounds very abrupt how the sound ends. And I was watching your bow thinking if it was maybe the audio, but I don't think it was. So for example, why don't you start one more time, maybe? Yeah, great. So, for example, so those kind of thing, I feel it's a little bit, and now it's a new, so. Yeah, something with how you end. Perhaps you could keep it maybe a little bit more alive or something with the sound, and think of a little bit more ring, in my opinion. Um, Even how you start the first couple notes, there's many different ways people do it, down up or whatever. Down down is fine, but I think if there's a way you can keep it ringing a little more. As opposed to, you know? Okay. I'll try one more time, please.
Yes.
So yeah, so even if you wanna point out the second beat, right? From the second to the third beat, I know that the eighth note is a pickup to the following bar, but I wouldn't do so. Okay, so maybe bum 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 pra. That's a ba ba bum ba ba bum ba. One more time. Great. That sounds great. I really like it, and I think you can show polyphony and phrases and different voices and all that, and without putting starting a new paragraph. Let's say if it was written language, but more like a comma or a colon. All right, jig.
Oh, okay.
Great, bravo. Yeah, that's awesome. So this one just with the same as with the command, I thought it could be a little less serious in general, and I was wondering if the stuff you do with timing could be done a little bit more with sound than with timing. Timing is good, but maybe with a little bit more dance-like feel. So a little bit of pum, gonna try one more time. Doesn't have to be too fast, but I think instead of great. Great. I think so. When you go into the 16th note, maybe I would love to hear a little bit less of eighth note, 16th note, pa, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta. So as opposed to, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Instead of going for that type of brilliancy, how about going for a little bit more dance feel? And you can do stuff with your bow distribution and bow speed, as opposed to I don't know how obvious it is on the microphone. Doesn't have to be too soft, but and I don't mean to say like play softer or anything like that. I just looking for something that you can do with your bow in order to achieve more of a dance feel. Why don't you start one more time? Even at the beginning, I know what I can. I mean, I know what you're trying to do. you know that there's this something different voice. But maybe you can just do it with your sound instead of ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba, because it feels maybe a little too like I don't know, not dancey enough. Okay. One more time. And just keep the pulse and do a lot more with your sound and with your think of expression with your bow speed. Great. It sounds a lot more effortless. And when it sounds like that, it sounds to me a lot less like but more and it's a lot more effective to me. And it sounds great. It seems easier. It sounds just as it's more easy basically, and more yeah, it flows much better. That's what I'm trying to say. It sounds like it flows a lot better. But yeah, great playing. Beautiful
Thank you.
hearing you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Maestro.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Wonderful job, Jorge. Thank you so much for playing for us.
Thank you.
And now June Lee from Maryland will play the first movement exposition of Violin Concerto No. 5 by Mozart, followed by orchestral excerpts by Smetana, Brahms, and Strauss.
Do you wanna? Hi, June. So, do you want to play maybe the exposition kind of like audition style a little bit? So you just play the exposition and then you go through the excerpts straight?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Bravo! Wonderful job. Thank you. Thanks for playing. Maybe we'll go in order of what you played. Let me get the Mozart right here. Come on, Apple. There you go. So, great opening. The adagio part. I was thinking. So I feel like in auditions, it sounds really solid. It sounds great. Many times when there's people one next to each other and everybody's playing this, sometimes oftentimes what stands out, at least to me, is how much of like the character or the kind of what I was talking about in the jig of in the Bach in D minor jig, how much of the easiness kind of is communicated, so it doesn't feel like so. So as opposed to like it could be really in tune and very solid, but sometimes it can be a little obviously you know it really well and it sounds great, and I think kind of a next level thing maybe could be try to find a way to communicate a little bit more with your sound and with your phrasing. Basically, not too serious, no. A little more joyous, and and obviously that's easy to say. And then when you're in a high pressure situation, of course, it's not how it feels. But I always think that when we practice, if we can practice it, thinking of even when you do notes stuff or passage work, you can still practice imagining that how you want it to sound, or if you want it to feel not serious and a little more joyous and brilliant. Then even when you're nervous or in a high pressure situation like an audition, some of that will stay with you. So if you as opposed to if you practice it really then when you're on stage or you're in the audition room, it's hard for it to sound any different, So it sounds great. I think specifically speaking, I think some of the stuff sounds a little bit, to my taste, a little too sustained, but maybe that's just me. Oops. Etc. So a little more lightness, but I don't want it to be softer, but a little bit more shape and a little bit more variety to your sound. I think will be great. Do you want to start again from the Allegro?
From where?
From Allegro?
Yeah.
Great, sounds great. Really, really solid, and it sounds great. So this is very small stuff that I'm talking about, but even here I think as opposed to a little bit too taka 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 taka, like machine-like, machine gun. I mean. Like a little bit more direction or a little bit something, because it sounds great and it sounds very solid and very, I can tell it's a very big sound and a feeling sound, and that's awesome. You shouldn't change that. I think you can maybe add a little bit more variation. Do you want to try again? Great, and maybe that sounds great, and maybe without rushing. Some of your very seldomly, some of your little runs rush a little bit. So think of them as a little bit more kind of letting them happen and letting them flow, as opposed, because we always try to kind of make things happen. And now that you nailed everything and you know how it goes and it's great, you can just let things happen. Let the runs, let the little passages, they just happen. Why don't you try one more time? And I think that would allow you not to and rush or any of those things. Try one more time. Yeah, great. And for example, there, here is another kind of sound. Like if I heard, because everybody will play everything with a very similar sound throughout. But the moment you hear someone, I feel in an audition that makes a little bit of difference. I don't care if they messed up the top A or whatever. Like I really don't care. So if they actually do something with, oops, sorry. So just a little bit direction or little things that if this were, so if you didn't have to prepare this for an audition and this was just like a Chrysler little piece that you had to just like play, like what would you do? Of course you wouldn't do everything that you would do in Chrysler, but sometimes I think we limit ourselves in what we can do, because we are in kind of audition mode and we gotta get the notes right, and you've got all of those things great, and I think you can definitely add anything that you hear creatively in your mind and just make it happen, and you clearly can, so nothing is stopping you, but our own mindset sometimes that we're like, oh, I just gotta get it right, so we just kind of stop taking care of certain things. So now let's go to the excerpts. Let me get the browns. Oh yes, great job, and I like how you make it very grand, and it sounds great. What was I gonna say about this? Why don't you start one more time? Maybe just right from the beginning. small thing. Make sure that at the beginning you don't do it too triplet-y. So. It was almost perfect, but I think it just in case. And there at letter A, I don't know if you have that rehearsal A. Yeah. So I would like to hear a completely different sound from what came before. Again, you can clearly play this really well. And what if I were on the other side of the screen, of the audition screen, something that would always impress me is like, wow, they're really doing something with a different sound. So you have one bar basically to change from that. So basically like from to, and that's really what's at the essence, I think, of the excerpt. Beside this excerpt, so if the candidate can really make some like magic out of that, that's when you're like, oh my god, I want to hear this person again. That's really awesome. And really, if something gets messed up, or it doesn't matter. So why don't you play from, if you have a letter A, from 2 before letter A, right, some around there. Yeah, make sure, sorry to interrupt, make sure this is very legato. So no, not portato. So okay, one more time. Awesome, much better. Let's move on to Barter Bride. I never know how to say that word correctly. So the smetana. Let's just play. Can you just play the first 12 bars or so? I'll just stop here. Awesome, great beginning. There's one small rhythm thing at the beginning, I think is, so in some motion is ba-da-ba. Watch out, make sure you're as precise as you can with how long you hold all those C's that have the tie. So just practice it like that a few times. One of them is a little too short, so it sounds a little. So I know it's a little bit faster than that, but if you can do it at that speed. Once you make it faster, it's gonna be even more precise. In the once it goes to piano subito, I think if there's any way you can make it a little bit more articulated, but without making it too like that. Just think of just letting the bow doing the work for you. You don't really have to make it bounce, obviously you weren't doing that, but just relax the fingers. And what I think always for this kind of thing is to a little bit, how do you say, just I don't want to say control the bow, because I want to convey the opposite of that, but kind of drive the bow, just thinking of your pinky, being mindful of what your pinky is doing. So for me, that gives me the right amount of bounce always, and without doing anything with my hands or my fingers. Just be mindful of what your pinky is doing. And why don't you go from the piano subito?
Can I ask you how much you tighten your bow?
Tighten? I put it, I guess that depends, I think, on each bow, but my bow is about as tight as it's a little loose now, but as tight as the width of the stick, let's say, for me. That's
Okay.
about right for me.
Mhm.
But I've seen people tighten it like it looks not like a baroque bow, but almost, and they sound amazing. So I don't know, honestly. That's what I do, but I don't know. I don't know if whatever works for you.
From piano? You said?
Yeah, can you just go from the piano subito and yeah, so maybe it might help you to maybe use a little bit more hair as opposed to, so very little bow, okay? No, can you do it a little bit softer?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I wonder how it sounds live. To me it sounds as it's ever so slightly a little fuzzy, but I could be wrong. So it sounds very accurate, and I think it's just a little bit fuzzy, a little bit as opposed to. Maybe I'm exaggerating too much now. Like I don't think of using my wrist or anything. I'm kind of just like moving my arm a little, like very slightly, and then the bow just bounces by itself. So I'm not doing anything of that. So I'm literally in slow motion. I'm doing. So once I get faster, so I'm literally just doing this. It's really, and my fingers are, I'm not really holding the bow almost. I'm just literally doing like this. I'm not putting any pressure on the fingers. So before we run out of time, do you want to play the opening of Don Juan? Great. I'll just stop you just for the sake of time. Yeah, make sure that that you're even on the longer notes, like half notes, you hear subdivisions and your rhythm stays consistent. For example, in the woodwinds have so you can't really take any time. Pum, pum. The same in it's been a while, but yeah. So make sure you always keep listening to the subdivision. Same on the opening. That one was a little bit too fast for my taste. Just make sure. I'm not a fan of practicing with metronome, but just do it twice or something like that, and then see the tendencies that it tells you. I don't like just practicing for the sake of practicing with the metronome. Just make sure what it tells you, where you tend to rush, where you tend to draw, or whatever, and then just use that when you practice without. Just don't. I'm against just practicing nonstop with metronome. Anyway, we ran out of time, but beautiful playing. Awesome, bravo. Thank you so much for playing.
Yes, thank you so much, June. That was lovely. I want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in and participating in today's masterclass. And thank you so much to performers, but especially to Jeremias Sergiani Valesquez for the inspiring coaching. So a huge round of applause. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about Jeremias or any other performers, please do enter them in the chat. There's one that I would like to get to. I know we're running short on time, but if we can just do a couple questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is, oops, let me make sure I didn't lose you on screen here. There we go. Little slow today. So Mary was asking, can you recommend any resources for learning to study a score?
Wait, that's a good question. So when I started my new job at the MET, I realized I spent more time with the score, like an orchestral score, than I ever had before, and it felt really slow at the beginning because it was like mentally draining. But after a while, it just got a lot easier to just kind of figure out what's going on just by looking at it. And honestly, I think just kind of looking at music with the score at first is kind of like it takes a lot of mental effort, but it only gets easier. It only gets easier. It absolutely does not get harder. So it only gets easier. So for me, it was just kind of doing it. Over the pandemic, I was a little bored, so I used this book called the Hindemith Elementary Musician. It's nothing by Elementary, but Elementary is really, really hard actually. And it has a lot of like rhythmic exercises where you do different stuff with the hand and playing on the piano and like easy stuff on the piano. And then singing and like a lot of really interesting stuff for sight singing and rhythm pattern recognition. And then your brain kind of learns certain patterns, and then you get better at interpreting music or scores, sight reading, and so forth. But specifically for score studying, I think just doing it, and that Hindemith book for me, was really helpful. But yeah. That's all I have.
That's a great point. This score study is so important, but I have a secondary follow-up question to that, and then I have one more, and that is, since score study can get really, really cerebral, so part of the challenge for us as musicians is to take that knowledge and turn it into a more emotive experience or an interpretation. Is there anything that you recommend to like really get into the feeling or heart of a piece to bring a performance to life that's outside of score study? Because that's where I get into my head.
Yes. I like, well, maybe this is part of score studying. I don't know if it really means that, but when I don't know if this answers your question, but when I'm learning something new or a new piece, I'm not a singer at all, but I like to think of how I would sing something, how I would sing a phrase, um, getting getting kind of some just I don't know if I'm learning the Bach's D minor partita, like look on YouTube like how do you dance Baroque dances just for fun, and I think all those little things, and of course you're not gonna play it at the tempo that is for it to be danced necessarily, but I think it makes one feel a lot more confident in their own interpretation. It's hard to know what influences what in interpretation. It's very, very difficult to define. Oh, this was just like in life. It's very difficult to define, although some moments one could say, but it's very difficult. So I think it works for me to just, because it's fun. I like to I nerd out a little bit on that. Just look up whatever that piece is inspiring and what was the motivation and or sing the music that you're learning and or yeah, I don't know.
I think that makes sense because it's really getting into the feeling, especially with singing. It's that direct connection we have to interpretation, regardless of our voice. It just kind of enlightens the performance by where we're putting that emphasis or what we're kind of doing with phrasing is really helpful. The name of the Hindemith book again, we have a
It's
question
called
on
The
that.
Elementary Musician, and it has the most passive-aggressive preface I've ever read, written by the author, and it's by Hindemith himself, and he basically says, if you can't do this book, you're not a musician. Like, it's so harsh, and I can get through like a quarter of the book kind of easily, but then it gets just almost impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's so hard. Impossible to me. I'm not nearly finishing half of it. I'm not doing it anymore, but it's just really fun. It's kind of a fun game. It's a lot of exercises, but
So
it's
the
a
Hindemith
funny
test, we'll do a
interface.
whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. And then the other question is, what is your process to prepare for an orchestra audition?
Um, for that, I tried many different things. I've taken several auditions and I don't know. Obviously we have to practice and all that, but I try to. The better I got at it was when I practiced less. Actually, I'm probably not supposed to say that, but I at the beginning I felt I practiced like so many hours every day, and then maybe I just wasn't as efficient, and then I just like my motto is kind of like with the excerpts. I feel I have to play them. I try to get them right every time. Of course, we're all human and we all make mistakes, but I have kind of the motto a little bit to get it right the first time and play it as slow as you have to in order to get it right always. And of course, you won't always get it right because we're human, and that's okay. That's totally fine. And it's just music. We're not doing surgery, so it's fine. But we yeah, I think if you just play it as slow as you have to in order to get it always get it right, and for me leading up into the audition, like the few days before is when I totally relax. I make like a kind of a mandatory mental vacation. I watch a movie that I watch, because that will take you much farther. Like your mental state will take you, if you are in a good mental state, it will take you much farther as to how many hours you practiced the few days before. So basically slow practice, and try to, every time you practice and you go through something, just always get it right. And of course you won't, and that's okay.
But try anyway.
But just kind of do it as slow as you have to get it right, and lead up into audition, do anything that means self-care to you, and you should always do that, but be specifically conscious of that right before the audition, because that's when we are most likely to forget those aspects of our life. And I think if we do that, then we got with a lot more at ease to the audition, and know that the audition is obviously for a job, and we feel like there's a lot at stake, but always try to tell myself like I don't need this. Like I'm okay. Like the world will keep rotating. Like I'll always find a way. It's fine. And at the moment of the audition, I always try to um, kind of communicate. Like I try not to worry if I'll mess up or something, because then I know I will mess up. So I try to just think, oh, I'll just try to communicate. It's just like me telling a story or something like that. And and I feel the more successful auditions for me were the ones where I really felt in that headspace. So I'm just communicating. Maybe these people, because I can see them, they're on the other side of the screen. So I'm like, maybe they had probably had a long day. I'm gonna try to, communicate some music and just like, see what's up. If they like me, great. If not, well, too bad. Life goes on. But kind of, we take our craft so seriously, and I think we're never told to lower the stakes, and um, I think it's important when to do it and how to do it.
That's a really interesting answer. I hadn't heard that before, but I really like the emphasis you put on specifically not practicing to the last minute, like really taking that time to calm yourself down to make it a lot less, high stakes. Because in the moment we start thinking about that, we're just, all of us, we tense up and however, mentally. So it does really impact a performance. So I love that advice to kind of chill out about it as much as possible, which can be hard to kind of talk
Yes.
yourself down from that edge.
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of counterintuitive because we're always told, oh, you have to be like as good as you can, and you're already doing it as good as you can, and practice consciously and slowly and always get it right. That's the best you can do. So,
If you have
um,
time for one last question,
yes.
that is, what is your practice routine, or what's that look like for you?
Um, it, it really depends on the day. Sometimes, unfortunately, I'm like barely or not able to practice some days if I'm super busy. But normally, what I do most times, I try to spend about 45 minutes on um, scales and double stops and things like that, because I feel are what kind of keep my chops. And I used to really hate doing that as a kid, and I really didn't do it. Um, Maybe it just wasn't the time for me. I think if I did it too much, I would have hated it. I probably wouldn't be a musician nowadays. But I like to do that stuff because talking about stakes, it's very low stake because I'm not performing it for anyone. It's just for me. I feel for me it's just like going to a little um, I don't know, a car workshop. I'm building my own car, like slowly, one part at a time, and doing my double stop. So specifically about what I do is I do a lot of stuff from the car flesh system of scales and arpeggios and all that. I do a bit of a variation of that, but essentially it's kind of the Carl. It's called the Carl flesh, and it's on MSLP. It just has everything from scales, arpeggios to double stops, which I think they're really important. I try to do them every day because they really dictate where intervals are in the violin. And yeah, and again, I really enjoy doing it because it's just very peaceful. It's like, I don't know, doing a little very introverted activity or moment on my own.
So again, taking the pressure out even when we're practicing is important.
Yes, I think if you practice like that and as much as possible, then you will be able to bring that to the performance. Because if you practice, being like this all the time, then it won't magically disappear in the performance. Performance is kind of a representation of what we were doing before, kind of, depending on how you feel that day too. But I think we practice everything, and that's no exception.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to all our performers and all who joined. I just want to make sure everybody has a wonderful rest of their Sunday, and I hope to see everybody next time at the next MET Orchestra Musicians Masterclass, which is clarinet next Sunday. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.